I invite you to picture this. A little kid sitting alone on a playground, watching the other kids play and knowing that he's not invited to participate. A slightly older preteen sitting alone at a lunchroom because every other kid in the cafeteria has told him that he's not invited to sit at their table. A high school student approaching his locker, opening it and finding notes inside, telling him that someone is going to kill him, that his life is being threatened because of his differences, because he's too femme, too queer, too something. Imagine a college student who only has people befriending him so that they can later share his secrets, stab him in the back, and allow the rest of his peers in his class to laugh at him. Imagine a young adult who's living in a cult because he finally found people who told him that he was lovable and worthy, only to discover that they were abusing him, manipulating him, and taking advantage of him in a physical, emotional, mental capacity. Imagine, if you will, that the person I just described is an earlier iteration of me. Most people see me here on YouTube or on other social media platforms and think, gee, Kalen is so confident, he's got his shit together, he's an attractive guy in many ways. But the truth is I spent most of my life being told I was dirt under other people's shoes, that I was unworthy of love, affection, attention, that I was probably better off dead. And still to this day, many nights, I have nightmares about the people who tormented me. So hey guys, peace, welcome. If we haven't met before, my name is Kalen. I'm an ecstatic spirituality coach. I'm the host of this YouTube channel, Ecstatic Self, where we explore the intersection of sexuality, spirituality, meditation, sex, finding belonging, and living an authentic, radiant life. I've written a couple books on these topics, and I also work with men all over the world one-on-one in coaching sessions to help them better come home to themselves. Our stories are interesting things. In the introduction to this video, I shared a version of my story that talks about the difficult places from which I came. Growing up queer in the Midwest in the 1990s and early 2000s, I was not very welcome. Growing up neurodivergent, that might be a step or two on the autism spectrum, but definitely my brain does not work and process in the way that normal people's do, was not a comfortable place to be growing up. Midwest, 1990s and 2000s. A friend was telling me about a video they posted online about high school in the early 2000s, and someone was commenting, "Love this chill vibe," and somebody responded, "Yeah, except every person in that video called me a faggot." When I was a young person, I was awkward, socially and physically, with limbs too long for his body. I was deeply, deeply afraid of everyone. I felt like an alien visitor on this planet, that I didn't understand people. I didn't understand why they behaved the ways they did. I didn't understand the social bonds they were forming. I felt like an outsider, somebody who showed up on the wrong planet. One of the things that still flummoxes me to this day is violence. I don't get it. I don't understand violence, why it happens, why people do it. I don't understand subtext a lot of the time. Like, I will tell people what I think. I'm really horrible at innuendo. What do they mean under the surface? It makes sarcasm a very difficult thing for me to understand. A lot of times I'll have to ask people, was that a joke or were you being serious? Because I'm sorry, I don't speak that language. Emotions were something very difficult for me because I've always been very keenly emotionally aware. I very much identify as an empath, that I can sense what's going on, but what people say they're feeling and communicate is often very different, and so it left me feeling deeply confused. I grew up a stranger in a strange land, and I grew up being completely isolated by my peers. I grew up being told that I was worthless. I was made fun of relentlessly. From about 2nd grade through 8th grade, and then again in college, people tormented me, especially middle school. 6th through 8th grade was the worst. I quite literally couldn't walk through a passing period without 7 or 8 insults or names being called after me. I'd show up at my locker and find nasty things thrown inside, hateful notes. Someone I remember urinated into my locker once, or poured a bag of urine into it. People would throw out my lunch. Threats of physical violence were routinely lobbed my way. Thankfully, high school was a little bit better because I ended up in a gifted program where it was with a bunch of other nerds who were equally neurodivergent and equally awkward. But college was, again, horrible. I went to Northwestern University, which is not only highly competitive, but I was in their theater program with a lot of rich, really socially adept kids who were vying for social status. And I didn't know how to play that game, and so I was quickly shoved to the bottom of the totem pole where I was routinely mocked. It was not a happy 4 years for me. I hear people who have these amazing college experiences, and mine very much felt like a travail. It felt like a gauntlet that I had to endure, not something to be celebrated. And then while I was in college, I got targeted by a cult, and cults thrive on singling out people in their late teens, early 20s who are loners, who don't have a strong social network, who don't feel seen, and telling them you are special, you are loved, you're amazing, let's bring you to this place where you're going to have a whole group of friends and be told how amazing you are. And I fell prey to that. I ended up staying in this cult for almost 10 years, living in it for almost 7. And I had no idea what it was. But in that place, I was routinely berated. I was routinely treated like trash and told that it was for my own good and my own development. When I first started dating, when I was 25 years old, I couldn't believe that people actually found me attractive and wanted to go on a date with me. I had been told I was unlovable and ugly and unworthy of anything. And so much of what I do now, whether it's helping other people or showing up shirtless or naked on the internet, is in that bid to heal, to grow, to help other people heal. But life did not make it easy for me on the onset. I was watching a YouTube short where someone was reacting to a video someone had posted, where this young guy, 23, I'd say about, really handsome, was like, I wish I had childhood trauma because I feel like it makes you a better person. I've never had a traumatic event in my life. My life has been super easy. Everyone's always just loved me and welcomed me everywhere I go, but I feel like I would be a more deep person if I had some trauma in my life. Oh, and as much as I really wanted to, roll my eyes at this person, as I'm sure a lot of people did, it's kind of true. Actually, it's very true. Scientists are now showing through brain studies that the ability that we have to experience joy, profound joy, real joy, is directly tied to the amount of suffering we've endured. Some even argue the fact that it's impossible to experience profound lasting joy unless you have first experienced sorrow. And this isn't a profoundly new idea. Let's look at the philosopher Khalil Gibran. In one of his poems, he says more or less the same thing. Your joy is sorrow unmasked, and the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with tears. The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that gives you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has brought you delight. I've come to appreciate that this torment that I went through wasn't a horrible thing that happened to me. In fact, I've come to see it as a gift. In fact, I've chosen to say I made the decision to have these very difficult experiences earlier in life because I knew it would teach me empathy. I knew it would teach me humility. I knew that it would teach me groundedness. It would give me the ability to experience great joy. Had I not gone through this intense level of suffering, where I was basically tortured for most of my youth, this isn't kind of my family life. I love my parents, but that's a whole other story right there. But had I not experienced those things in my younger years, I wouldn't be here doing what we're doing right now. It is the gift that my sorrow has given me that has allowed me to be this deep, reflective, spiritual being that I am. And most of the deep, spiritual, open, beautifully radiant individuals that I know are ones that have endured unimaginable difficulties. But amongst us, there's this quality that we share. And to paraphrase one of my favorite writers and thinkers, Elizabeth Lesser, sorrow, grief, hardship can do one of two things. One, it can crush us. It can shut us down, it can break us. Or two, it can crack us open. That the pain, the sorrow, breaks at the eggshell and allows the light to shine through. Or in the words of the poet Rumi, the wound is the place where the light enters you. That pain is the cracking of our shell that allows our inner luminescence to break forth. Through suffering, through sorrow, as opposed to being jaded and hateful towards the world, we take that and turn it inwards and allow us to become more understanding, more compassionate, more loving. We forgive ourselves, we forgive others. It can be a tremendous gift. But not everyone in the world can, or at least chooses, to pursue the dealing with sorrow and pain in this way. Many of us do become angry, many of us do become violent, many of us do become shadows of our former self because of the suffering we've endured. But that's not the story I'm choosing to tell. The story I'm choosing to tell is I was a young person who endured very difficult circumstances. But those difficult circumstances made me a better person. It made me a confident, joy-filled, loving person. And I still have my shit I'm working through. I'm not fully healed. I'm still a work in progress. I'm still working through those lessons that life gave me. And to be quite frank, many nights out of the week, I'll still have nightmares about these people who've wronged me. I will dream about being back in this cult, this ashram, and having my tormentors around me. And now, fortunately, in the dreams more recently, I stand up to them, I rebuke them, I put them in their place. I remember in a dream a couple nights ago, I told this woman, Bhakti, you fucking manipulative, totalitarian bitch. You are just a narcissistic asshole who is on a huge ego trip. Fuck you. Oh, that felt fucking good to say to her, right? Like it was me reclaiming my power and saying, you abused me for almost a decade. Fuck you, you monster. I'm reclaiming my right to stand up to you. Words that I probably will never be able to say in real life to her. She lives in Colorado now, and I do fantasize with sometimes trying to, you know what, it doesn't matter, right? I'm doing my healing. I hope she's doing hers. Peace and blessings to her. Shalom. Bless and release. But I still have dreams. I still have dreams of being tormented. And it's clear I probably have PTSD, but I'll awake having had dreams of being hunted and chased and burned, murdered, really violent things. And I'm not a violent person, I don't consume violent media, but these are the wounds I've been left with. The shame I still feel around my body and not being good enough, or not being worthy of touch, not being worthy of sex, which, you know, probably seems ironic because I'm always naked and on stuff online, but that's why, right? Like I'm working through that. I'm learning to heal those things. But I can genuinely say now, I am me. I'm growing into the person I am being. I do not have it all figured out. But these hardships have given me lessons to work through. They've given me a compassion for others. They have given me a compassion for the foibles of the world and other people suffering. It's given me a project to continue to work on so that every day I can try to be a little more healed, a little more whole, a little more forgiving of myself, a little more understanding, a little more compassionate. And the moral of the story is I'm able to take these wounds that I incurred, these traumatic experiences I endured, and use them as teaching moments for others, to hopefully allow other people to be more kind, more compassionate, less vengeful, less malicious, to see other people as beautiful incarnations of the divine, because you are, we all are. Whatever confidence I've attained, whatever self-worth I've attained, whatever feeling of belonging I've attained in this world have been things that were dearly fought for me. They were not handed to me. I was not given a place in this world and told, you are worthy, you belong, claim your space, white cis man. I didn't believe I was worth anything. And so for me, it has greater value. My ability to speak to you all has greater value. My ability to show up here, to show up proverbially and quite literally sometimes naked with you, is meaningful. Because, and I know I've said this many times, but for most of my life you would have never even seen me with my shirt off. As a younger person with pectus excavatum, where my ribs curve in, I was mocked relentlessly by my peers, told I was hideous, that I should keep my shirt on, that I was an embarrassment. And now I show up here with you all, bearing it all sometimes. These hardships weren't my obstacle to overcome. These hardships were my gateways. By passing through the wound, I've become a more light-filled person. By surrendering to the pressure, the crushing feeling of dread of these events, I've opened to something more. Our stories of tragedy, our stories of trauma do not have to define us, but instead they can be the launching off points that allow us to blossom into our full potential. We can become more because of those pain points, not in spite of them. So my goal has never been, and hopefully never will be, to build a facade so immaculate that I present this burnished image that it just seems like everything is perfect and easy and wonderful. It isn't. It's hard. Sometimes it's a daily struggle, but I am deeply grateful for the life I've been given, people with whom I get to interact like you, and to have a space where I can share my story. A space where I can hopefully, even in a small way, inspire you. That no matter what has happened to you in your life, those things which you dread, those things that you fear, those things that you've avoided, those will become some of your greatest treasures. Because had I not had these difficult stories, perhaps I would have been like that 23-year-old boy who's complaining that he's never had a traumatic event in his life and feels like he's lacking depth. Had I never had those traumatic events, I wouldn't now have the depth to be able to help console others and support others and be a companion for others on their spiritual journey of development. If I didn't have that struggle to attain a sense of belonging and being here and being in my body, I might take all of this for granted. Instead, every day, I express a tremendous amount of gratitude for this life, for this mind, for this body, for these experiences. Every relationship that I have, romantic, platonic, friendly, foe-y, people who don't like me even, I give thanks for them because I know how precious this life is. I feel so blessed to get to be a human in this country, at this time, in this space, even with all the difficulties that come therein. And had I not struggled, would I even be aware of that? Would I be able to have the grateful life that I do without these challenges? I don't know. But I know that my story is not yet finished. And I know that as I continue to refine my tale of becoming, of healing, of growing, of truism, finding my truest authentic self, that it will be a grand adventure to share. And my hope for you is that as you retell your story, that you look back with pride and say, my goodness, it hasn't always been easy, but it has been worth it. And I am grateful for every footfall on the path, even the uncomfortable ones. I'm Kalen. This is Ecstatic Self. Blessings.